Cool. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You're now listening to Championship on the Line podcast. And today we have a very special episode today. It's a treat for us. I know for Rich and I, we're very excited to have this wrestler on the show. He is currently right now doing big things right now. He's going over the place, going from Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong, and now NWA. He's giving everyone the Midas touch, ladies and gentlemen. He's going over the place. And also he was the former Hollywood Heritage Champion, also a two-time EWF American Championship, also longest reigning EWF American Champion. He is the golden boy, Jordan Clearwater, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, Jordan.
Guys, it's always a pleasure to be on the show. We were chatting up a little bit before we started, and so I'll say it again. You know, it's always a pleasure to be able to connect with everybody and be able to have an avenue with the fans. You know, especially with COVID and everything being locked down. But yeah, man, that's what I was saying. You know, with COVID, I might as well be the longest reigning American champion. I mean, never had probably defended it once in 2020, but hey, you know, unbeat until 2021.
It counts. It counts.
It counts, right?
It counts.
I mean, it counts. I think they count it. I haven't vacated the belt, so you know, I mean, shoot, it counts.
Yeah, the history books is still your name on the title. So
right. Right.
But also, you know, like we're saying and talking about, you know, COVID, you know, we've been talking to other people and they, you know, have had, you know, slow months and, you know, especially inactivity. But for you, you've been going over the place with Hollywood, New Japan Strong. How's COVID been for you and staying busy?
Yeah, man, that's a great question because for a lot of people, COVID really impacted their lives in a negative way, right? There was people that had died, people that were sick. You know, we were kind of forced into our homes and it was such a crazy experience. But for me, I saw a lot of opportunity come out of that, right? You know, Hollywood didn't run right at first and there was a little bit of a break, but that gave rise to New Japan Strong. And so, you know, that opportunity opened up and that door opened up. And so when Hollywood came back, I can't imagine that those opportunities didn't help me get to the NWA as well, outside of maybe doing primetime live and things like that. So to answer your question, COVID treated me pretty well. Coming out of COVID, like you said, I feel like I stayed pretty busy. I've kept a full schedule with wrestling still. And it's been good. You know, COVID's been good to me at least, you know, but that's from my perspective. I can't say that for everybody, right?
Oh, of course. And like you said, it opened a lot of doors. So like this pandemic for you happened very good because you opened to New Japan, NWA, and then, you know, so it's been really good for you. And like, also, what is it like to wrestle with no audience? What is it like experience like for you of no audience and no reaction?
Yeah, it's a different experience, you know. I got a chance to talk with Nick Aldis a little bit backstage at Primetime Live before we had our match for Shockwave. And he kind of put it the best way in the sense that when you're out there with a crowd, you know, there's a certain feeling, right? And oftentimes that might kind of influence our behaviors as wrestlers in the ring. And to take that away with no audience, it makes it tough. But also it's kind of more of our personality can shine through as well in the sense that you guys are watching, right? And now you have the luxury of like skipping, going to the next match, you know, so it almost means even more that you're watching our matches sitting at home because you have that luxury now, right? Whereas not every show was being live streamed or not every show was, you know, on Fight TV. You know, all of a sudden there are a lot of shows on Fight TV. And so I think it was best for the fans and for the wrestlers in a sense to kind of give us both a way to develop. So when I think things come back, it's going to come back better than ever. But, you know, I do miss the feeling and the energy. There's nothing that can replace a live audience. I don't know. I'm biased to think that wrestling was meant to be in front of a crowd because of how much life you guys give. Because at the end of the day, without the crowd, there would be no wrestling. You know, it'd just be us in an empty studio, but nobody watching. So you guys give this thing life for sure, you know.
Of course, definitely agree. And, you know, also, you know, Rich and I were talking about, you know, we first saw you wrestle live. It was an EWF, I believe, anniversary show. And this is when you won the EWF American Championship the first time in the Great Goliath Battle Royal. What was that like for you to hold and to also win the EWF American Championship that night?
Well, it was it was kind of my first it was the first mark that I made in California. For
Mm-hmm.
me, have coming from Cincinnati, I had a whole life and a career built in a totally different area. And I was rising the ranks in those independents over there. So to come here, completely and totally removed, there was a lot of time that I spent not wrestling and trying to find where I would be next. And the EWF took me in, and so for me um, to be able to wrestle with them and have that opportunity, and then to win the American title, and to hear not only to be able to win the American title, but to hear the response. That room was so electric. I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
help but to, you can't help but to gush a little bit because it's so. There's something to said about Covina, by the way. That or
Yeah.
building and that audience is off the charts. But yeah, for that opportunity to happen and for it to happen there, it was kind of like, okay, I'm here now. You know what I mean? This is where I'm at. This is where I'm reinventing myself, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Also, because like Rich and I, we've been going there since we were little kids, so we got to see guys like obviously the Young Bucks and T.J. Perkins and Rocky Romero and all those guys. So when we saw you win that title, it was very very special, and it was like seeing something special, seeing you watch to win that title.
Yeah.
Because you think of like that title, you think of guys like Carl Anderson won that title, Human Tornado, Mikey Nichols, Ryan Taylor, and now you. So for you to hear that name with those greats, how does it make you feel?
Right. Well, Carl Anderson's a great name for you to bring up, even Mikey Nichols, because it draws it like as a wrestler, it's fantastic. But the fan inside of me is screaming because, you know, I started um in Cincinnati under the tutelage of Roger Ruffin and by virtue Carl Anderson, who was trained out of the NWF. No different than Mikey Nichols, who went through the NWF, or maybe even like Jillian Hall or Wildcat Chris Harris. So to come to California and to have that staple, and for it to be the very title that Carl Anderson won when he came out here, it was kind of like, this feels like a little too eerily similar. And then and so it to watch it play out full circle,
Mhm.
it's indescribable, the feeling.
That's awesome. And then like also, you lose the title and then you win it back again. You're a
Yes.
two-time American champion. What was it like winning for the second time? Was it different feeling winning from the first time?
It was a different feeling, because it was a different circumstance. The winning the title is for us the sign that you're carrying that specific division and everybody's looking to you for that challenge. And when I won the American title, it was in the battle royal, right? It was kind of not like it was unforeseen, but not a whole lot of people saw it coming. It wasn't necessarily a match, right? Jordan Clearwater versus who, or who versus Jordan Clearwater. So this time it was more of a competitive win, if that makes sense. And so I thought it was a different feeling because it meant something a little bit different than the first time did. It meant now that I showed that I'm a staple, I showed that I belong here. And that wasn't just a one-time thing, right? I didn't just
Mhm.
win it that one time because, it was a battle royal. I improved myself that I've won, I've held, and I can get it back whenever I choose because I'm the golden boy, right? And so that's how it goes.
Awesome too, because like by winning it too, it's like you made a point like I do belong here. I do belong in California and EWF, and I proved it winning it the second time. And also you beat Honest John, correct? For that.
Yes, that's right. That would be right. Yes,
Yeah.
and yeah, I got to work with Honest John, and we had a couple. It's funny. Let me tell you about Honest John here for a second. What's funny is I had I remember watching Honest John have his first match. I remember having Honest John's second or third match in San Bernardino. And
Mm.
so for me to have wrestled him there and to have eventually lost the title too, and to get it back from him in Covina, that just goes to show how much John has progressed as a wrestler, and
Mhm.
how much I have enjoyed working with some of the different guys in Southern California, regardless of their experience level. And, it says a lot about him. I think it says a lot about me as well for having to work with him, and I thought that we had some great matches at the end of the day. Our characters don't see eye to eye, but I can look across the ring from John and know that, you guys are going to get a great match. That's for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And then, you guys improved so much, and you got like you've been doing things in Hollywood and in New Japan, and also Honest John, he's also in Hollywood now. So it's really
Right.
cool to see both you guys come from EWF and now in the big stage. So it's really cool to see that. And also take us back. You said, you came to California from Cincinnati. What was it like? Tell us about what made you want to be a wrestler, and also were you a fan growing up as a kid?
Oh yeah, dude. Growing up as a kid, let me tell you, I considered myself the biggest wrestling fan. Didn't we all, right? Growing up as a
Yeah.
kid. We're like, oh man, this is how much I love wrestling. No, this is how much I love wrestling. So, growing up as a kid, I found wrestling by chance. It turned on television. My brother turned on television one day, and it was Triple H was smashing in Kofi Kingston, and there was just something about the way it was like, wow, this is, you turn on the television, see this for the first time, you see this dude like shredded, going to town on this other dude, and the crowd's going crazy, and it's like, wow, I want to be a part of that. Who doesn't want to be a part of that? And so that's where my love of wrestling started. I was really the only one. My uncle liked wrestling. My grandfather liked wrestling before he passed, and so I got a chance to share that with him. And so I was really the only one in my group that liked wrestling, right? So I kind of
Mhm.
had it all to myself. But when I graduated high school, I did as any normal person that loves wrestling does, and say, I'm going to go to a wrestling school. And so that's how I started wrestling. I looked it up and found the NWF, and so that's where I started in Cincinnati back in 2015. It's been crazy. It's been 6 years now.
Wow.
It feels like it was just yesterday.
It, that's awesome. And take us back, like your first day in training, trying to become a wrestler. How was that experience like?
Oh man. My first day in training, let me tell you guys, I pull up, I have my gym bag. No one really knows what to expect, right? I had like these hockey knee pads, like just the worst wrestling knee pads you could ever imagine. Like, and so I had these knee pads, and I show up, and I remember going in this old dilapidated building, man. This thing was tore up. And so I pay, and I just go in there and I sit, I'm looking at the ring like, oh man, like I was nervous. I was excited, Um, there was this guy there that used to wrestle. He was working out in the ring a little bit, and I thought, this is it, And so um, we just went through some basic warm-ups and did a lot of like wrestling on the ground. It wasn't anything too crazy, but I knew from that day, like I knew from when I first started liking wrestling to that day that this was what I was meant to do. And when I was there in that moment, it was like, this is where I belong. And so it was such a great learning experience. I couldn't have asked for a better place to do it than the NWF. I think they're pretty well known. They
Mhm.
deserve all the recognition in the world. All the people that you guys have mentioned, Rocky, Carl, they've all wrestled there. Moxley, you know what I mean? People that are running
Mhm.
the main events of those shows. And so it's indescribable. It's every guy's fantasy, I think, to a certain extent, right? To just be able to step into the ring and just hit the ropes a couple times.
Oh yeah, for sure. Training there, like all the names you're mentioning, was there like a specific like mentor, anyone you gravitated to?
Yeah, that's man, you guys have asked a lot of good questions. Specific mentor, you know. Right out of the gate, there was a guy that started training me. His name is Nick. I mean, he wrestled under the name of the Titan in that area. And so Nick was soon to become the NWF heavyweight champion. So we have our NWF World Heavyweight Champion, you know, kind of like, you know, how the EWF has their World Heavyweight Championship. You mentioned people like Russ, you mentioned people like, again, Anderson, TJ, people that all held that belt. Our same lineage runs through that NWF title as well, right? So, you know, it's a big moment. And so he was making those strides in his career, and he really helped me out and took me on the road. Hey, he took me to Tennessee, took me to Kentucky, you know, showed me a lot of different areas. So did my trainer, you know, but Nick, he spent the time with me. You know, he went through the movements with me. He showed me the holds. And so I instantly formed that bond, and we would, you know, we would wrestle during the day, party at night. It was kind of like living a little bit of a rock star lifestyle there for a second. And it was, you know, it was it was a good experience. So, so yes, I did. Yeah.
Is there any advice that Nick gave you that you still carry to this day? That you still stick with you?
Ooh, that's, you know, that's a good question. Is this a PG show? I don't know. Is this a PG show?
No, you can say whatever you want.
Go ahead. Yeah.
He said to me, he said very clearly, he said, Jordan, don't be a bitch. That is probably the best advice you could
It's really good advice.
Don't be a bitch. And you know, that goes at every aspect of your life. But it's not about, you know, it's not about being an ass. It's not, but it's about being yourself. You know what I mean? And never being afraid to do that. Like, and at first, you know, you kind of take it as tough love, like, you know, you kind of get down on yourself. But man, looking back on that time, he's so right. You know, stand up for yourself, do what makes you happy, because at the end of the day, that's all, you know, that really matters is are you doing what you love to do? And so don't, you know, settle, don't sacrifice for anything that you don't want for yourself. And so so yeah, I mean, he didn't say all that to me. He just said, Jordan, don't be a bitch. And so that's how I took it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And also take us back to when you made your debut, when you first time you got out of the curtains and you saw the crowd. What was that feeling like for you in your first match?
Waiting for these questions, brother. Let me tell you, my first match, I'll paint it for you. It was February 14th, the day before I turned 19 years old. I was working out and it was snowing. It was cold, it was snowing, and we canceled the show that day. We had a show. I wasn't going to wrestle on it. I was just there to do, you know, security, because a lot of times the guys will show up and do security or help check you guys in to be a part of the show, but also to train, you know what I mean? Because they're part of the school, right? So didn't go to that. I was working out in the gym, and my trainer, Roger, texted me. He's like, hey, what are you doing? I was like, working out. He's like, how fast can you be at my house? I was like, right now. And so I drove over there, and he's like, all right, you know, he grabs his duffel bag and he throws a singlet in there. And I start getting nervous. I'm like, oh my God, why is he putting a singlet in a bag? You know, like I'm starting to put stuff together. He puts 2 pairs of boots in there. I mean, I didn't even have gear at the time, guys. Like, I'm telling you, I was, you know, this was totally out of the blue. And he grabs it and he's like, all right, here you go. Doesn't tell me anything. And so we're driving, hours go by. I'm getting so anxious because I know the inevitable, right? But he's just not telling me what's going on. And so we're getting there, and he's like, all right, kid, it's me and you on one. Here's what I was like, what are you talking about? It's me and you on one. I don't have any gear. I don't have my knee pads. This is my first match. I haven't even told my mom. You know what I mean? This is insane. So shoot, dude, we got there. I was a nervous wreck. Let me tell you, an absolute nervous wreck. And the boots, first off, they didn't fit. We had to duct tape them to my legs.
Oh.
The singlet was like way oversized. And shoot, if I had known this, I could pull up the photo right now. There's a one long lost photo that exists of this occasion. And I just look like the most nervous wreck you ever seen. Anyway, I go out there and it was like, I think I came out to like a Slipknot song, you know, it's just
Yeah.
And I just hit the curtain and it's like, let's go, you know what I mean? Here we are, let's freaking go. And so, man, that experience was great too. But man, it was it was a nerve-wracking experience. It could have been a lot less anxious going into it, but I didn't know what was going on. And so I was just stoked that I got to wrestle on Valentine's Day.
Oh wow, that's,
Right.
that's
You guys
crazy.
didn't know you were getting into a whole story, did you? Let me tell you, I have some stories. Not a lot of stories, but just some.
That's awesome. Yeah, we want to hear them. Tell us, when starting out, was there any wrestlers that would watch film to get inspiration of your ring style?
Yeah, I grew up watching Triple H as a fan, but at the end of the day, Triple H as a character, Triple H as a wrestler, and Triple H as a person is everything you want in wrestling. He is the perfect match, he is the perfect opponent, and he's the ring general every time. And so you can't go wrong with watching him. Everything that he does with a purpose, and he does it the best out of anybody, from punching somebody to getting punched to comedy. I mean, he's all of it. So Triple H is great. Now, some other people I'll throw out there that have influenced my ring style, people like Ricky Steamboat, to a certain example. I think Ricky Steamboat's a great person to watch. A lot of 70s, 80s wrestling. The Hansons, Von Erichs, even Randy Orton, I think, is a great person to watch. A Lance Cade, for me, because of my size and my body type, the more I started wrestling, the more I started getting to know myself, the more I started to kind of experiment with different wrestlers that look like me. I felt like that I could try to kind of pick up on some of the things that they did really well. So those are kind of the people that I was watching to get my in-ring style. Yeah.
And also, like, growing up as being a fan, did you collect any like action figures, or did you play like the wrestling video games or anything like that?
Oh man, best. Okay, let me ask you guys a question. First off, what is the best wrestling video game of all time?
Ooh,
Trying to think.
this is any
I'm
system,
trying
right?
to think. Yeah.
This can be any system. I mean, growing up, I played a lot on the PSP, but
Yeah.
Exactly the same with us too. Yeah.
yeah, because I didn't have, me personally, I didn't have, like, I had a PS2 at some point for a little bit of time, and then I didn't have anything until the PS4. So anyway, so any system, what is the best wrestling game?
I remember more like PS1 as a kid. I liked like the WCW Worldwide, even the ECW had like maybe not the best graphics, but that nostalgia feeling. Like ECW was awesome. I think those are probably my two.
I probably agree with him, and especially like the PSP ones too, like the Raw versus SmackDown. Like, yeah, those ones were pretty
SmackDown,
good.
yeah.
SmackDown versus Raw. That's exactly what I was about to say. SmackDown versus Raw 2007 is my favorite. I love the GM mode. I love the rate. I love all the modes. The GM mode, though, is what made that game so special. I love being able to buy, Undertaker's $1 million and Undertaker. So yes, I've collected, like, I actually have every SmackDown versus Raw, like, ever at my house. And so on top of that, I have like little things like a piece of the mat from WrestleMania 30. It's like signed by Hulk Hogan. I have, I have a bunch of old little action figures that I used to play with. I used to play with these. I had these big action figures, but they also had these little microaggression figures, and I would make these big stages and stuff. Man, I love the little figures because you could take them anywhere. Like, you didn't need to, like, you know what I mean? The big bulky figures, I could just pull those little guys out. So I had my own federation. It was all, it was all booked out, and I had the whole thing. So I collect a lot of stuff. My crowning achievement, and this is me as a wrestling fan, is I bought one of those title belts, right? The grand thing for wrestling fan is to wear a title belt to the show. You see it, right? Got the big belt. I could never wear mine to the show, but I definitely got it signed by pretty much everybody I could ever think of. From like Jericho to HBK to Orton to Triple H to Batista. Like, I've got it all. And it's just, and that thing's maybe, 10 plus years old, which isn't terribly long ago, I guess, maybe even longer than that. But even the signatures are starting to fade. But that was my crowning achievement right there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's bringing me memories too, just thinking about those those
Right,
Yeah.
I get so excited. Like I'm looking at your background. I wish I had.
Yeah, we
one.
still collect
Yeah,
this stuff.
Like I could have put like
It's over
I know I
here.
could have at least put on a virtual background for you guys of like like what might be my my wrestling room if only I had one.
but
One.
but yeah, like you said, like the Raw and SmackDown, that was a game, especially like we had the one for like PSP, like that was it,
That was it, dude. You could take it everywhere. I mean,
Uh-huh.
the PSP was so underrated for its
It
time
is.
Oh yes.
but the PSP was so, dude. When could you tell me a system, a phone, a system that's not a computer that you could surf the web, you
Mhm.
could listen to music, you could
MP3s, yeah.
watch videos and movies, play video games, right? Who else did that at the
It
time?
did it all. Oh,
Way underrated. Way underrated. The PSP
And
is
spe-
where it's at. I was a DS fan. I had the DS for the Pokemon games, but the PSP was mint.
oh yeah, especially like when the commercials came out for the first time, it was like game changing. It was like,
Oh
what is
yeah,
oh
this?
yeah.
so hype, so hype.
So also like, tell us about when you made the move to California. Tell us what made you decide to go move out there, and also work with EWF with Jesse Hernandez also.
Yeah. So I was going into at the NWF. I was going into our biggest show of the year. We call it Fan Fest. And I was going into a title match. It was a steel cage match for the world heavyweight title. It's at the time it was what was supposed to be the biggest match of my career in Cincinnati, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I got a call from Carl Anderson, and Carl said, you should reconsider this match, or at least staying after this match, because you don't want to be in a situation where you can't leave. And to be honest, if you want to make it, you have to get out of Cincinnati. Like you're not going to make it in Cincinnati, Ohio. You have to get out there, and let alone not just to make it, but just for yourself, for your own personal growth. Really, at the end of the day, is you have to go out there, right? And I've always been one to adventure out. So he's like, I can introduce you to some people, one being Jesse Hernandez, the other being Dave Marquez with the United Wrestling Network. I don't know how much they can help you, but it'll be a start. So Dave calls me, Marquez calls me. He's kind of tells me the lay of the land in California and what to expect, and that I'm welcome to come to Hollywood. And so I just packed up my things, literally left 2 weeks after that call, left 2 weeks after that call, packed up the things in my car and drove out here. Lived in some sketchy places for a little bit. I stayed in a shed. At one point, I was sleeping in a shed. I slept in my car and in Planet Fitness before. And then one time I slept for maybe a couple months, like couch surfing in this one like multi-family home. It had like 10 different families, and like there was like only 4 bedrooms. It was crazy. Somebody stole my passport. It was off the
Oh.
chart. Anyway, right, like it was a lot. So that was my introduction to California, and I eventually settled in Pomona, which wasn't much better, but at least I had my own little place. So the trip was learned a lot about myself, right? I didn't wrestle for a couple months, and that was tough, but it just reinforces at the end of the day that I came out here not just to wrestle, but for myself and to grow as a person and as a character in wrestling. So it benefited both. It was the right decision at the right time. And look what came of it: EWF, New Japan, NWA. So at the end of the day, cheers to Chad, because he was right. That's too sweet, right? I should too sweet.
And also like tell us like what was it like meeting like Jesse for the first time, and what is it like working with Jesse too?
Yeah, Jesse. Yeah, Jesse. I met Jesse the first time I came to training, and actually Jesse wasn't there. He said, "Brother, I'm not going to be there, but you know who is going to be there? One of my students, Ty Ray, and that's actually how I met Ty Ray." And Tyre was like, hey, showed me what was going on, ran training, and it was a great first workout. And so that's how I got to know and be friends with Tyre. So, and we had a lot of matches at the EWF. And so Jesse came and I met Jesse, and he was really nice and cordial, and spoke very highly of Chad, spoke very highly of what we were doing in Cincinnati, and he's like, why don't you come and train, and just so I could see where you're at. Right. And so I trained, and of course I'd been wrestling for a couple of years at the time, but Jesse didn't know that. And so he pulled me aside and he's like, "Oh, brother, you got to get with Jake, or you got to get with you got to get on the show, you have to get on the show." So I was like, "Oh, great." So he got me on the show, and let me tell you, since I've been on that show, Jesse, I don't know how he's still doing it. He is the hardest working
Mhm.
dude. He is the first there. He is the last to leave. He sweeps the floor. He mops the floor. He sets up the ring. He tears down the ring. He
Mhm.
does everything from A to Z, man. And he's still been doing it strong. He's got so many stories from 40 plus years ago of the business, and it's wealth of knowledge. And Jesse has always been very cordial and respectful to me. And so working with him, I mean, he's a he's a good brother in all the senses of the term.
Mhm. Oh yeah, absolutely. Because like when Rich and I would go as as kids to the show, he was doing everything.
Everything, man.
He was running all over the place. And then like for years, like when we went to go see you at the anniversary show, that was like the first show we went in like a few years. And when we saw Jesse, I'm like, man, this things still haven't changed. He's still doing the same thing he did years ago, and he's still doing it, which is awesome. And it's the only promotion really out of California still has that longevity of over 20 years, still doing shows in California.
Oh yes, the EWF. There's a lot of great places to go and see wrestling in Southern California. A lot of schools that have popped up, but one thing has stayed true, and they say that no one ever makes it to the top without getting through Jesse Hernandez first. And
Hmm.
that's probably for a reason, because everybody knows who he is. He's been around. He's made a name
Very
for
true.
himself. He's established himself, and the EWF is probably the longest running promotion in this area
Hmm.
consecutively, with the amount of shows that they do. They put on shows almost on a weekly basis, and so for
Hmm.
us, that's something that you can't find anywhere. And for the fans, I mean, that's like having Monday Night Raw right in your backyard. The
Yeah.
people are on a they're on a good level at the EWF. They're people that you can interact with. It's a more intimate environment, and so yeah, I mean, he's built a really special thing in the EWF, I think.
That is very true. Yeah, Alex and I, when we were kids, we went every Friday, and we didn't care about Friday Night SmackDown. We wanted to watch EDF wrestling, and like you said, Jesse has so much. He gets so much respect from all the wrestlers in California and across the country. Alex and I've been to so many shows, and out of nowhere, Jesse comes in, and just the respect and so many people coming up to him, shaking his hand. You can see like how much he is an influence to the wrestling business. He's just such a
Right.
legend for California wrestling.
Yes. He's a legend for California wrestling. He's a legend for all wrestling, and
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
he's built a legacy. So I respect the hell out of Jesse. I think um he is built an empire, pun intended,
yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And good for him. I hope he gives himself a freaking. I'd hate for the EWF not to run, but that poor soul, I hope he gives himself a break. However, I don't know, man. I think he'd always want to be involved in the business somehow up
Oh,
until.
Oh yeah.
So in whatever form that looks like, let's just hope that he can keep doing what he's doing, because he puts a smile on all of our faces.
oh yeah, for sure.
So, tell us about also, working with David Marquez, and what was it like to make your debut in Hollywood with the lights and the camera crew and all
Yeah.
that? What was that feeling like for you?
Yeah, no. Dave was very inviting. Dave opened his doors to me, to his house, to his show, and so Marquez has never shown me ill. He's always been inviting. He said, "Come." I showed up and I worked and I helped set up the ring and tear down, and got to meet the people. And I was there for maybe 4 or 5 months, and I had been started wrestling for the EWF, and helped build that credibility, right? Winning the American title. And so eventually, around the 6 month mark, I got a chance to debut in a battle royal, and it's not the limelight you expect, right? When it's a battle royal, everyone's in the ring, but just being able to walk through that stage and on those lights and with those cameras, it was definitely a surreal experience. I mean, shoot, they've got something totally different than what the EWF has, than what the NWF has, right? They have um, television, and they make it a production, and they do it so well. You know, they've done it well since 2008. They haven't been around 20 plus years, but Dave has, you know, and so he's got the connections, and he's got the programming and the knowledge behind video editing to make that vision work. And he does it effectively at Hollywood. They have a great solid fan base, much like we have at the EWF. People get opportunities by being associated with Hollywood and Dave. And so I think that attracts a different level of talent as well. You know, we've seen people go through there like AJ Styles. We've seen people go through there like recently, like Alberto Del Rio, you know, and so there's an air about that place that that makes it special. And doing New Japan there makes so much sense because it's it's a perfect environment for them to operate, especially because Dave had a relationship with them at some point in time. So you know, it's a great for everything that it is. Having Hollywood there at the Ocean View Pavilion is fantastic, and so I think I really enjoy working with Dave in Hollywood.
It's true because like he's been with the business so long. You know, I think about like the same time we were going to EWF shows. I remember he was running the LA Dojo, I believe, in Santa Monica at the time, and for New Japan. So like from that, and then still doing this from Hollywood, he's, you know, kind of like Jesse the same. You know, he's been doing this for such a long time and kind of a legend, especially in California. You know, with the wrestling out here, it's amazing what he's been doing, especially with the pandemic too.
Yeah, yeah, no, and so like New Japan started running in their undisclosed location
Yeah.
before Hollywood, and then I think and Dave has always been associated with it in some point because you said it best. The dojo Dave was a part of, right?
Mhm.
And so he has some semblance of at least producing and editing that show, and I think that same style carries over in Hollywood. So after New Japan was doing their shows in their location, Hollywood started running their shows eventually once COVID started to open up and let loose a little bit. And so we see maybe a little bit of that bleed through. You can watch both programmings and kind of get a sense of okay, this has his seal of approval, if that makes sense. I can tell
Mhm.
Dave is associated with this product like he is Hollywood, and he does it well. And so I think that's not a bad marquee to have there.
Mhm. And also too, you know, I was watching during with the pandemic, watching Hollywood, and I noticed, you know, you've been working with a mutual friend with Blake Bulletproof Truth. You know, what was it like working with him and also training at the world famous Black House Gym?
Man, and that's a part of what Hollywood does so well, you know, and it all comes down to just the people that are back there. You know, I mentioned New Japan and the way that they run their operation. It's so succinct, it's so close, it's so tight, such a very strong locker room, and such a great group of minds. And then you have Hollywood's locker room, and they're run again very similar style, but you have different people that are back there, and they have different ideas. And so one of their ideas was to introduce me to Troop, and Troop and I got together and we went to Black House, and to be able to have Justin there to be taking photos and um, the videography and everything that went into creating those packages, it was great. You know what I mean? It felt
Mhm.
good to be able to see that play out on the big screen. You know what I mean? To see kind of a part of my life play out on the big screen with Troop, because Troop is very knowledgeable and a
Oh
really
yeah.
good person. So working with him was fantastic. I enjoyed so much the training that we did together. Quite frankly, if Troop was still living in Southern California, it would be so great if we could just meet up and go to the gym, because he just is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to that stuff.
Oh yeah.
And so working with Troop was great. Having Hollywood capture all of it in a spectacular fashion was even better. I
Oh,
thought it was
absolutely.
fantastic. So yeah, no, I think working with Troop and being able to work with Hollywood on that was great. Yeah.
And what is he like in the gym training with him? Like having him as a coach, what is he like? Is he different?
It's different, you know, but he's himself through and through. You know, you see what is what you get with Troop, and I think that's what's most that's what's great about being around him, is that what you see is what you get. And so he's as nice as he is and as knowledgeable as he is,
Mhm.
and takes really the time to walk you through what needs to be done, like in and out of the ring. And so I don't know if you've noticed, he's done some stuff on Twitter where he's showing some people different things like rolling around the
Mhm.
mat and
Mhm. The techniques, yeah.
holds. right? And so I think that's just a testament to who he is. He's a helpful person. He likes to help people. And so he carried that through at Black House, especially it being a legendary gym, Anderson Silva's gym right here in Los Angeles. Not very many people just get to stroll through that, and be a part of that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. I remember because I used to watch those fights a lot, especially King of Cage, and I'll be honest, I thought I was very intimidating to see him because he's such a big guy. But then when I met him in person and I met him at a tournament, he was like the opposite. He's such a nice guy, very helpful. I remember I was having I remember having a grappling match, and I didn't even know who he was. I just barely met him. He's like, "Dude, I'll train you for your next match. I'll coach you right now." So I'm like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "That's just how he is."
You meet him at a competition, and he just turns out to be one of the best and goodest brothers. Like he goes and takes the time to not only say, "Hey, like X, Y, and Z," but you know what? You need help? Here, come over here. I'll just work out with you right here, right now, and show you exactly what I'm talking about. And he knows what he's talking about. And so again, like it's a testament to who he is as a person. He's a very helpful person, and I think he's going to go extremely far in either MMA, wrestling, or even both for that matter. Just based on that attribute alone.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And I remember just like doing the match. I'm like, oh, well, I haven't really worked with him, so it's gonna be interesting to see how this goes. And then listening what advice is giving me, I ended up winning the match, and I was like, oh man,
wow,
really, very knowledgeable. He knows his stuff.
Yes,
he's very good at what he does. Also, what are your thoughts on on him trying to make? He's gonna make a wrestling move. What are your thoughts on him doing that?
Yeah, no, I think I was sharing this with Troop at Hollywood because I've been a big proponent of him using his MMA style in professional wrestling because, in my opinion, wrestling is focused on that aspect of sports and sports entertainment, and a part of that is suspending your disbelief in the sense that there's no doubt that he can go in there and wrestle anybody to the ground, and I think that adds more allure to who he could be as a wrestler. So long story short is I think it's a great fit. I think the crossover makes sense, and I think he's going to be good at it. He's training with the Seidels down in Florida, and I think that's going to be really good for him for the amount of matches and reps that he's able to get in.
Oh, absolutely. I can't wait. I know he's been training hard, and like I said, I know because when I had him on the podcast and he was saying he's going to use all these like MMA moves that he does, he's going to use in the ring. So, can't wait for him to finally make his debut. But also, tell us about, when you won the Hollywood Heritage Champion by defeating Ray Rosas. What was that feeling like for you to win that title and on TV? You hear me? You hear me good? Oh,
I think you went on mute, Jordan.
I think you're on mute.
You're good now.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
The audio died for something.
I think you went on mute for a second, but you're good now.
I think you're good now. Yeah, I was on mute for a second.
Can you? I thought, yeah, I can hear you guys. I was trying to unmute and mute myself because I lost your audio there for a second. I was trying to put my headphones in to see if that was going to help, but I'm sorry, I missed your last question.
Oh, I was just asking, what was it like to win the Hollywood Heritage title, against Ray Rosas? What was it like winning that belt on TV?
Man, let me tell you too about Ray Rosas because Ray Rosas was my first feud getting into Hollywood, my first real blood feud. And so for that to come to full fruition, maybe a year, even 2 years after the fact that I was wrestling for Hollywood was something special. There's no other person I would have rather wrestled that title from than Ray. I think Ray was the perfect person for that time. And it was the perfect arc to our story. And he's such a great competitor that he makes everything else that he touches turn to gold, much like I do. So it was just a good connection with him. And to be able to go from the American title at the EWF right? Being able to say, here I am, I'm a staple, you know, I'm here to make an impact, to go to winning it back again. Like, I belong here, right? I belong here, and this is my new home, to winning the Hollywood Heritage title and saying, not only do I belong here, but I'm running this place, and it's my time now to, you know, lead the pack into whatever's next, you know. And so to have that that sense of responsibility was a lot, but I felt like I was ready for it in the time, and I enjoyed holding it. And you know, and it was surreal. Again, one of those, you can see the photo where I'm holding it right here, you know, to go from the first match on Valentine's Day in 2016 or whatever, all the way till you know, 2020, holding that title. It's you know, it was totally not something that I expected from the beginning, but something that I always knew would kind of happen. So it was just a crossroads for me. You know, it was a very surreal moment. And those types of things are what's so real about wrestling, because it's so true to who you are as a person, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it was very, because like I've been watching you for a long time, especially in Hollywood, and for all the work you put in there, and then to finally win the title, I was like, oh, finally, you know, like he deserved it, you know, he deserved it for such a long time, and now he finally had it. He has the title, you know, so it was very special to watch that. And also, what does that do for your career? Also, to at least say you were the Hollywood Heritage champion. How much does that mean to you?
Yeah, no, being able to say you're the Heritage champion is being able to say you're the best at any given promotion.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You are leading the pack. You are running the show. People are striving to beat you. People are striving to take that from you. And so, and again, we're talking about all these different promotions, right? But at the end of the day, it all led to Hollywood. And so, holding that Heritage title, moving into that opportunity with the NWA, and then eventually moving into that opportunity with New Japan, I don't think it's a coincidence. I think it's a natural progression, right? And to see it unfold in front of you is like knowing what's coming next, the inevitable, but you're still in the moment of, I'm here and this is my present. And so having to be able to hold that title meant a lot to me. And being able to wrestle different people for it was fantastic. And I thought the angle that it led into with Jack Banning was one of my best angles yet at Hollywood. Even though it didn't contain the title, I think it was one of the true and tried stories at Hollywood that had been spent time developing over weeks and months of television. And it really pulled the best out of both of us to see a little different side to me and a little different side to him that you maybe haven't seen in the past, you know? And so again, I don't think it even needed to have that title. I think it held its status by it being just it. And that's the best thing that you can ask for in wrestling, right? It's kind of like WrestleMania 28. The title didn't main event WrestleMania. CM Punk didn't main event WrestleMania, but John Cena and The Rock did. It's one of those stories that have been worked on and developed and perfected to the point where you can't help but to see the end, the blow off.
And it's like recently watching like the whole Jake Banning thing from the start, where he has you in the guillotine, he's not letting you go, and then from also fighting backstage too. And you know, what was that? First off, like, what was that experience? What was it like working with Jake Banning?
Yeah, no, Jack. He fits his mold very well, and he portrays somebody on television that's very relatable, especially in this day and age. And so it really raised the question of whether or not, like, he might be in an audience environment more liked than me in that circumstance, right? Or vice versa. And so that added a little bit of spice to it. And he was really open to playing with that. And he was really open to playing with the whole story and wanting it to develop slowly. And I think that's where I really enjoyed working with him the most, is the opportunities that we were given to work in at Hollywood. We made the most of those opportunities, which is what told that story. And his different ideas and my different ideas they work really well together. I think it's kind of like that yin and that yang. And so it was a very physical match. It was a very hard fought match, but every time I went back to the curtain, I didn't think, man, that was a bad match. You know, I might have get my ass kicked, I might have kicked some ass, but I was never like, oh, you know, this match was rough for me. So that's a testament to Jack as well. You know, he's been doing this for some time. And so I think it was the two right people coming together.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And, especially, you wrestled a lot of great wrestlers in Hollywood, like guys like Zicky Dice, EJ Sparks, Ice Williams. When you look back so far in Hollywood, what match would be your favorite match in Hollywood so far?
Wow, that's a good question. It's tough not to say, like, you have your staples, right? You have your debut match. You have the big heritage title match, right? Then you have the blow off, the Falls Count Anywhere or Last Man Standing match with Jack Banning, and they all hold a special place in my heart. I think that at the end of the day, one of my favorite, if not my favorite telling matches is probably the one that I had with Ray, only because that was the beginning of the evolution of who I am now. The Golden Boy has changed from when you guys saw me first win the American title in EWF, right? You've seen a different side of me portrayed on television. You've seen maybe a more aggressive, a different look, a different feel to the Golden Boy. So I've progressed. And that was really the cannon shot was with Ray. And so that was one of my favorite matches. Now, if not tied to that match, was my last match with Jack Banning because of the story that was told, how easy it was to have that match, and how I felt we pulled it off. So both of those matches are really, really good in my book.
Oh, absolutely. Totally agree. And, like you said, from watching you winning the American Championship EWF and now, you've evolved so much and gotten so much better. And it's amazing to watch. And it's great, man. And I'm so happy for all the things you've been doing, especially with Japan and New Japan and NWA. So it's really awesome. And also, one match I'd like to talk about is you wrestled for Impact in a dark match.
Yes.
Against Peter Avalon. How did that come about? What was it like working with Peter Avalon?
Yeah, man, the whole Impact deal. I was actually supposed to wrestle for Impact one of the night, I believe it was the night that I lost. No, one of the nights I defended the EWF title in Covina. I was supposed to wrestle for Impact that night, but I haven't already committed to Jesse. I wanted to hold up that commitment first. And I didn't know for an absolute fact what type of situation I would be put in at Impact. So I stayed there. I was happy that I stayed there. And then Saturday, I went down to Hollywood for the second show. And Marquez had asked me to show up. So I went, helped set up the ring, did what I needed to do. And I was told by D'Lo Brown, came up to me and said, hey, you and Peter Avalon, this is what we're doing. And Pete is somebody that while Nick was my mentor in Cincinnati, Peter Avalon was my mentor here in California. I trained with Peter Avalon. He showed me the ropes. He got me introduced to so many different people, and he's always such a good, solid person. And that's what it boils down to. Are you a good, solid person? And I could feel like I could travel the roads with him, and I could trust him like a brother. So Peter Avalon really took care of me while I was here, and being able to wrestle him at Impact right as AEW was kind of getting started, right as people were given the right, it was kind of just start happening. So to be with him in that moment of his career, and for him to pull me up from that moment in my career was a lot. You know what I mean? It meant a lot for me. I hope that it meant a lot for Peter. We're still in contact, even though he's primarily wrestling for AEW now, but yeah, that match was great, and that was really the first break that I had on a national television show or a syndicated product like Impact. I had done some little things here and there with WWE being in the conga line, but other than that, I was here in full form, and so I would have rather had it against. I would rather had Peter Avalon over anybody else I could have had in that moment, because of that relationship with Pete. So it's funny how life has a way of working itself out every time.
Oh yeah, and especially did you get a chance being in Impact? Did you get a chance to meet like Scott D'Amore or Don Callis or any of the guys out there?
At the time, Scott was there, but Don Callis was not, if I remember correctly. So I had the opportunity to meet people like Tommy Dreamer, people like D'Lo Brown and Scott D'Amore. There were people there that I remembered from back in Cincinnati. You had people like Ace Austin that had come from that same area, the Midwest area that was there. There were a couple other people there like Reno Scum that you had seen in Hollywood. Andy Brown was there. So there was a good mix in that locker room of people that I was familiar with and people that I got to meet. And Tommy Dreamer, watched my match and gave me some feedback on that as well. And so, from having played with Tommy Dreamer's action figure when I was just a little kid to him critiquing me on my match was a pretty cool moment to have there at Impact.
That's awesome. And did they give you like any advice or anything that you remember?
Tommy Dreamer have given me some specific advice. Outside of that, Impact, I mean, D'Lo and Tommy were open and they gave us some advice. But I never really got any direction on, what was next. You know what I mean? We were there in a different kind of capacity. So I don't know that they were really looking at us in that light at that time. But I don't think it ever hurts to be there. And I don't think it ever hurted to have been seen there, and having crossed Scott on other shows. I think it only helps having had that experience, though, it being back in 2019, it seems like forever ago. That was 2019, right? So that has been some time has passed. Things have changed, I'm sure, an Impact. So nothing really telling from them, but still a great opportunity nonetheless.
And also now, you're doing things for like New Japan. What was that feeling like for you? Because you've had a lot of matches with New Japan, guys like, Fred Rosser, Danny Lamlight, Clark Connors. Out of all those matches, what's it been like experience like wrestling over there with New Japan?
It's totally different than what we do here. It's a totally different style. And strong style isn't just the way that you interact with your opponent in the ring. It's the way and the mentality of how you wrestle. And so making that adjustment has been such a tough adjustment for me to make, but in it being tough and a challenge, it's helped progress me as a wrestler as well in different areas that I've most desperately needed. And so New Japan is always pushing me to be my best. And I love that about them. And they always give me the time and the opponent to work my craft on the stage that they have. I can't have been happier with New Japan. The people there, the locker room there is like nothing I've ever experienced. Bunch of great people, a solid show, very high talent, very high drive and push for excellence. And they're very much about positive reinforcement. I never, ever leave that show feeling bad. They always leave me feeling uplifted and with, if anything, some feedback to work on. So New Japan, can't say enough about it. Shoot, they make me a t-shirt. So I can't.
That's awesome.
I got my shirt on Token Shop Global, and so, you can't complain about that. And it's pretty soft too. So I don't know. I like it.
That's awesome. And then also talking about like, what was it like working with guys like Danny Lamlight, Clark Connors, and Fred Ross? What was it like working with them?
Yeah, man, all of those guys. Danny's doing huge things in AEW, coming from Hollywood, meeting him at Hollywood, wrestling with him on New Japan Strong, and seeing the stuff that he does on AEW is great. Clark Connors, he's been fantastic since day one. One of my favorite matches was against Clark Connors at New Japan. So that holds a special place in my heart with Clark too. Always working with me, always giving me advice. Love the surfer hair. And then by far the best brother, not even a good brother, the best brother, Fred Rosser. One of the best matches I've had in my entire life and my entire career, if not the best match I've had in my entire career. That guy through and through is the definition of a good brother. He is by far one of my favorite people to work with and be around in that locker room. And any locker room that him and I are in, it feels that much better because he is just a person that I look up to, respect, and he's redefining himself in what he does at New Japan versus what he was doing at WWE. I think he looks the best he's ever looked. I think he wrestles the best he's ever wrestled. And I can't say enough about that man. He's fantastic.
Oh, absolutely. Totally. I think Rich and I totally agree, because we got to see him a few times, after the lead, he's looked great, I think probably better than ever.
Yeah.
And also, speaking of New Japan, as of now, who do you want to work with over there? What match would you like to have with?
Thinking about New Japan, there are definitely I definitely have it's not a short list. They call it a short list, but my list is long. And I can just start reading names for you. One of my top people at New Japan that I would like to wrestle, at least let's limit it down to New Japan Strong, the people that are regulars on that show. El Phantasmo would top the list. I think he's one of the best, if not the best up and coming wrestler. Already made it, you know what I mean? I don't know if you consider him up and coming or made it. Obviously, he's on Impact in New Japan, so he's made it. But one of the newer generation wrestlers that has made it, that is absolutely fantastic. I love El Phantasmo. I would love to wrestle him. I think he'd bring the best match out of me impossible. I can't get enough of who he is as a person and a character. So that dude tops the list. Right next to El Phantasmo is Rocky. I would love to wrestle Rocky Romero just because knowing, Carl and Rocky have wrestled, they've tagged, having that connection there and being able to work with him and watching him wrestle in the ring, that would be also one of those matches. And then I'm thinking about anybody that I haven't wrestled yet at New Japan that I would like to. There are so many different people back there that are good, but those two top of the list, and the Young Lions, Clark Connors, Carl Fredericks, Kevin Knight, Alex, they're even DKC now. I would wrestle any of them any day of the week. I mean, they're safe, they're strong, they're everything that you would look for in wrestler. They're unique and they're great opponents every time.
Oh, absolutely. And I can't wait, man. Hopefully these matches happen, man, because I think any match that you're in, it's going to be exciting. I think any match
I certainly hope so. I certainly am appreciate you saying that. And so I've wrestled some of them. Fred Rosser, put him back on the list. And so the more that I get to wrestle them, the happier and hopefully happier they'll be. So I'll wrestle any of them any day of the week. It doesn't even have to be New Japan. Come meet me at the NWA, Fred. I know you're there.
Awesome. And then also, you got to do things like for NWA. What was that whole experience like with you working with NWA?
Yeah, so NWA really started at Primetime Live. I wrestled Nick Aldis in a match, opening or midway match for Shockwave. And wrestling Nick, getting to know Nick was great. Nick's a great person. Loved being with him in the locker room, sharing some stories, getting a good laugh. And wrestling on that program and wrestling him and being so as fluid and as professional as he is, it was some of the most fun that I've had in my career. And I would say that my match with Nick Aldis is probably my favorite and best match of all time. And that is not eclipsed my personal favorite match, which has happened long ago, but I'll save that for later. Save that for a later conversation. It's a long story. Anyway, Nick, I think, was the person that opened the door for me for the NWA. And I got the call from the NWA. They had made my travel arrangements, sent me out to Atlanta. It was great. Though that locker room is just on par with New Japan. A bunch of great guys, relaxed vibe. Aaron Stevens, getting to be able to meet people like Aaron Stevens, Chris Masters, or Chris Adonis, Tyrus, Jax, Crimson, all of those guys back there was fantastic. And it was a huge step in my career, a huge milestone for me in my career. And wrestling there felt like home for me because I think my personal style and the way that I like to watch wrestling and I like the way that I like to wrestle aligns perfectly with the way that NWA and the product that NWA is trying to put on. And so, thinking about it, I think it was one of the best experiences of my career, and I can't wait to go back in a month, in less than a month.
Oh yeah, and then like also like one match that I really liked too was like for the attack, the fatal 4-way match. I think it was a You, Slice, Boogie, Crimson, and Jack Stain. What are your thoughts on that match and working with those guys?
Well, let me tell you, there's nothing like being on pay-per-view. It was like having my first match all over again. Being able to go back there and see all the cameras and the television, warming up in the back and seeing just your social media blow up and it's coming. The photos, the outpouring of support of family, friends, fans that were watching me on television, like, oh, hey, look, it's you, you're here. Man, that is just indescribable. That feeling of support. And to have that with 3 other guys, 1 that I know from Southern California, 2 that were really open to working with us, it made for a very solid match, a very solid opening match to the pay-per-view. And going out there, I felt really and truly, I felt it was where I belonged. Again, I cannot say it enough. I've said on other podcasts that have asked me where I've wanted to go, and I've always said the NWA. And now that I've been there, I'm glad that I'm there because it does align exactly as I expected it. But man, there's nothing like coming out that curtain, those lights, and knowing that the world was watching, and it feels like home.
That's awesome. And what was it like also working with the staff? And like also did you get a chance to meet Billy Corgan? What was that like?
Billy Corgan was not at the event, so I did not get a chance to meet him. But the staff back there, some of them were from Hollywood, that I already knew, and they are just as good as ever, just the best people to be with. Really, all of the people back there were great. I can't say a bad thing about the NWA and the show that they put on. It was very organized, it was very professional, and I love the way that they do things. I love everything from the way that they sanction their matches to the people that work there to the program that they put on. So working with them and the officials and the photographers and the seamstresses, it was all great.
And then we're talking about the guys you want to wrestle in New Japan. What guys do you want to wrestle in NWA? Who's in the list?
Oh man, I got my long list. I already know. Top of the list right now is Nick Aldis. I almost got my rematch with him. Something happened with Trevor Murdoch. I don't know. My nose in it. That's another guy that I got to meet, which was absolutely fantastic. Nick Aldis is definitely top of the list. I want to have another match with him. I think it would be a great match. I know that we could put on a good competitive showing. Aaron Stevens is up there. I want to wrestle Aaron Stevens. I've already wrestled Fred, so I can't say Fred, but Fred's still at the top of my list every time because he's such a great person. All of this, Stevens, I really want to wrestle Trevor Murdoch. I think much like Fred, he's doing some great work that he didn't have a chance really to do in the WWE right now at NWA, and I think it really shows. And so if you haven't checked it out, you have to check it out. I think it's great. And so Trevor's up there as well. Chris Adonis is up there. I really want to work with Pope as well. I think Pope is fantastic. From everything that he's done and the stuff that he's doing on NWA, and him in the locker room is great. And I wouldn't mind wrestling Jax and Crimson again, but man, I could name names all day. Those are those are the few or the plenty that I'm thinking of right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, just a few names you now. It's like I could see being like really awesome matches. So I can't wait, man. Hopefully, we get to see those dream matches, man.
Right, me too, man. You and I both. I'll be living the dream right there with you. I think after the NWA pay-per-view ended, I walked up to the balcony where they do all the lights and they do all the music, and the techs were still up there, and they're like, "Oh man, great match," whatever they were talking to me, and I was like talking to them, and they're great people, and they're like, "What are you doing up here?" And I was like, "I just think I need to sit down and soak it in for a little bit, kind of like absorb this moment for what it is." And they're like, "Take your time." There was the lone chair up there, and I just sit back and took it all in, and it was fantastic. So
that's awesome. And one thing I also want to talk about, you were a part of Talking Shop Mania too. You're a zombie. What was that experience like?
Well, let me tell you, that experience was exactly the way that you expected. It was the worst, the worst pay-per-view of all time, right behind Talking Shop Mania 1. That being said, it was so much fun. I was so glad to be a part of it, to be able to play a zombie and to wrestle Taya Valkyrie as a zombie. Come on, it doesn't get better than that. I got to eat Adrian and I got to get shot and die by Kozlov. So, you know, I mean, and so on top of all that, all of those people, all those great people were there. Chavo was a blast in the locker room. Sin Bodhi is just fantastic. And so it was a lot of fun. But no, having all that makeup on me was definitely a new experience for me. That was for sure. But I loved every second of it.
I was gonna say, like, was it like a long process too, like putting all that makeup on?
Yeah, it was a long process. You know, it took him a couple hours for me to sit still in that chair, you know, but she did a good job, and I was impressed. I was like, wow, I kind of do look like a little bit like a zombie. I don't know. Make me look a little bit better, please. No, I'm just kidding.
That's awesome. And speaking of, when you look back in your career so far, give us like a list. What matches? Even this is from all the promotions you've done and everything. What matches would be your proudest and your favorite matches in your career?
Number one, my match with Nick Aldis at Shockwave. That is probably what I would say my crowning match, my crowning achievement was in wrestling so far, because of the match quality, the arena, and the production quality that Dave had put into it, and what led out of it. This is thus far. Right below that's my match with Fred Roster, because Fred was brought the best out of me, and is somebody that I've now started watching for my own style. Add that to the list of the greats that I'd mentioned before. That's a great match. And then below that's that story of that other match I was telling you about. That was such a great match. That was back in the hills of the Appalachian Mountains with one of my best friends that I used to tag with. We were together, and we had this main event match. We had 30 minutes. I was the champion at this promotion, and we had a big full gymnasium. And so literally anything that you could have imagined happened. It'd be like, the two of you brothers going at it and having 30 minutes and a sold out crowd. You would do everything and everything. And so, that's my personal favorite match of all time because of that moment. But that was, as far as my professional matches, that also is up there though, because of the crowd reaction, being able to be myself and be able to experience that with them. So that was also a really good match. But those are my top three.
Awesome. And also, what advice can you give to a person that's like possibly listening to this? Advice you could give to a person that wants to become a professional wrestler.
I would say the best advice that I can give is do what you love and do what makes you happy. When it comes to wrestling, there are a lot of things that go into being a successful wrestler, but as long as it makes you love it and as long as it makes you happy, keep doing it and do it to the best of your ability. Because at the end of the day, if you put everything that you have into that, you will manifest your own destiny in wrestling, whatever that might look like, whether it be the Jesse, it be the recently signed Russ, it be the WWE champion. Put in as much effort as you can into that, but also have a backup plan. Focus on a career as well. You can do both. And when you're in a good position, that way you never have to worry about what you're going to fall back on. Should something not work out in the future, you always have an established career. So do both, but most importantly, make your decision, get a backup plan, and do both to the best of your ability, because there will be times when you need money, which can be supported by your career, and then times when you need to have a release and fun and love to wrestle, and that's wrestling. You can do both, especially in this day and age, especially with COVID and of having that kind of break. So I would say have a backup plan and stick to what you love and do it as long as it makes you happy.
Awesome. That's absolutely great advice.
I mean, that guy, and that comes from the heart, man. And like, been doing this not for as long as a lot of people, but 6 years looking back. That was the advice that I got from John Cena, that I think is the best advice, because it's helped me to this day. And by John Cena, I don't mean John Cena told me specifically. I meant I was a little kid and I was looking it up on Wiki Answers or something like that. And like, I think somebody did an interview with them and it was like John Cena, like Daniel Bryan, like they all had their like little responses in there. And I thought, that's some good advice. Maybe I'll do that. And so I did that. Well, I pass it along to those that listen.
Awesome, man. And once again, thank you so much for sharing all these things with us, because as Rich and I were such big fans, and really thank you so much for taking the time to do this with us, man.
Yeah, dude, trust me, whenever I get a moment to talk about myself, I'll go ahead and take it. No, I'm just kidding. It was a blast talking to you guys. I always enjoy again, connecting with you and being able to do things like this, because this is special to me and I love doing things like this. And the fact that you guys think my work, my art is special is what gives me the motivation to continue to do it, because I cannot tell you enough. I cannot tell you enough. It is the people like you that make my dream a possibility and potentially your dreams a possibility, because at the end of the day, we're all fans at heart. So the fact that you get to share and enjoy what I'm doing, then that gives me goosebumps.
Awesome, man. Yeah, man. Like I said, from watching you doing your thing and EWF winning the title now, watching that and then seeing what you've done so far in NWA, New Japan, man. I can't wait for the future for you, man.
Yeah, we'll see where it takes us. I'm always optimistic on the future, no matter what path it may lead. So whatever happens, and I'm looking forward to it too.
But real quick, before we start wrapping up, there's a little segment like we like to do. It's called Fun Questions. We ask you fun questions just for the fans to get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah.
All right, I'm ready. I did one of these on I did Fred Rosser's podcast, and he hit me like 20 questions, like rapid fire. So I'm ready. I love this. I'm ready.
All right, awesome. So first question: what is your favorite movie of all time?
Happy Gilmore.
Awesome.
Happy Gilmore. Adam Sandler, doesn't get better than that. I literally watched it every single day as a kid on VHS.
Awesome. And then, what's your favorite TV show?
Favorite? That's the worst, because as a kid growing up, every little I was the person that put WWE Raw on it every time.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, Monday Night Raw, ever heard of it? That's my favorite TV show. I'm guilty of it, okay? But if I can say Monday Night Raw, then I'm going to say The Office. And The Office is fantastic. Steve Carell is much like Adam Sandler to me. I think he's great. It's so cringy. It's nice, of fun and enjoyment and love and hate and romance. And it's everything that you could ask for in a series. I love The Office. Office is great.
And speaking of The Office, what is your favorite character in that show? And also, which character is the one that you dislike the most?
Oh, God. Oh, man. Favorite character on the show is Michael, because I think without him, it wouldn't have been as cringy and as popular as it was at the very beginning. He left, and I still enjoyed The Office after season 7, and a lot of people was like, oh, it went downhill. I don't really think it went downhill. I think Steve Carell gave them a great platform to work off of, and they did for as long as they could. And he was such a major part of that show. Steve Carell is probably my favorite. Jan, on the other hand, is the worst. I can't stand her. I mean, the dinner party episode, if you need a good cringe fest, just go ahead.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
How do you watch that from start to finish? Like, I can't. Like, I just skip it. That one or Scott's Tots. Scott's Tots is pretty bad, where he promises all those kids college tuition.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. There are some laptop batteries. Oh, I can't.
Oh, yeah. There was like the newspaper, too. Like, Stanley was like, has it really been 10 years?
Oh, take a photo. I'm like, stop, I can't. This is so cringe. This is so beyond cringeworthy. I just can't.
Oh, yeah. It was awesome. And then with the next question, what is do you have like a favorite music artist or a band that you like to listen to?
Yes, another easy one. Linkin Park. R.I.P. Chester Bennington. Apologies. Linkin Park has been my favorite band. I used to listen to country exclusively as a child, and then I became an angsty adolescent teen, and Linkin Park was there to capture my attention. And I've loved and purchased every deluxe album of Linkin Park. I collect Linkin Park albums. There you go. There's another one. Every deluxe album of Linkin Park they've ever released, I own. And Chester Bennington is one of the best rockers of our collective, the younger generation, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely, totally agree. I know Rich and I were huge fans, like little kids growing up. You know, and also, what is your favorite song of all time from Linkin Park?
Oh, that's easy one. In the end, it doesn't even matter. I mean, that's the best. You know, in the end is just it's the perfect rock and rap song put together, and it's like the best of both genres. You got Mike, you got Chester, you got good hard fat beat. I'm playing it in my head right now. I just want to sing it for you guys. If you guys wanted to hear some horrible singing, if you want your laptops to crack, just let me know. I'll start singing.
Awesome. And with the next one, what is your favorite? You have a favorite food or like a favorite snack or meal that you like to eat?
It's gonna sound stupid. I love corn. I love corn so much. I don't know why I love corn, but there's nothing like, like Mexican corn or just straight corn on the cob. Like, I mean, like that's game over for me. It's, corn is the best. And so I have a favorite meal, of course I love steak and chicken and whatnot or whatever, but corn on the other hand, that's what Hulk Hogan missed out on, guys. Drink, eat say your prayers, eat your vitamins, drink your milk, and eat corn.
Awesome. And then would you say, when we were talking about video games, what would you say your favorite video game would it be, Raw versus SmackDown?
SmackDown versus Raw 2007 is great. I don't want to give you a cop-out answer though, because like any WWE game is great. So let me think of something that's not wrestling related that I loved, and that would probably be Skyrim, or I guess Elder Scrolls, whatever. Elder Scrolls, Skyrim, whatever. I sunk so many hours into that game. And so that's a really solid game that I used to like. RuneScape, when it was a thing. I don't know if anybody ever remembers RuneScape on the computer. It was like MMORG. That was huge. Loved RuneScape. And then I'm gaming one right now on my phone. I guess that considers me a mobile gamer or whatever. I know the gaming community hates mobile gamers, but it's fantastic. It's better than the Marvel game that came out for the Avengers on PS4. That I can tell you because I own both. And the mobile game is better. So
awesome. And do you have any hobbies you like to do outside of wrestling?
Hobbies outside of wrestling. I mean, I do a number of different things. I'm competing in bodybuilding competition on June 19th, NPC West Coast. It will be out in the desert at the Rancho Mirage the there. So I'll be doing that. So bodybuilding's been a large part of what I've been doing, even with COVID. Outside of bodybuilding, I played the drums. Haven't played in a band in some time, but I used to play in a band. And then I have a my backup. What I give everyone advice for my career is I'm pretty involved in that. So I enjoy working for Morgan Stanley, and then also I'm also in college completing my master's. So I have a lot of different things I like to do outside of wrestling. So got a lot of irons in the fire, so to speak.
Awesome. And then with the next question, let's see. Oh, do you, outside of wrestling, are you like a sports fan? Do you watch any sports? And if so, do you have a favorite sports team?
Well, I think the all-American answer is to say baseball. Being from Cincinnati, the Cincinnati Reds make sense because they were the first baseball team ever. So I guess you could say the Cincinnati Reds, but they haven't been good since the Big Red Machine, which was like 20 years ago. So it's kind of sad. And then football, I can't say the Bengals because they're worse than the Browns, and that hurts me to say. So I'm just going to default to the Dodgers because I live here now, so I can do that, I guess. And then I don't really watch hockey, so nothing really there. But so yeah, I'm gonna say Cincinnati Reds for baseball and Dodgers for football currently.
Awesome. And then with the final question, if you could have a match with a fictional character, it could be from a TV show, movie, video game character, anything, who would it be?
Oh man, yo, that's a good question.
He'd even be Michael Scott.
Michael Scott would be good. I'm afraid to say someone like Thor because I guess he would just like roast me with a snap, and I don't want to die, I guess. So at least like Michael Scott, I might be able to like, just hit him with the Midas touch right out of the gate. A cheap win. Like I'm for sure like, oh hey, look at that over there, and when he turns, just boom right to the back of the head. It's game over. So that's a good answer is Michael Scott. I want to say Thor, but Chris Hemsworth would, might kill me with his lightning. So I can't say that.
All right, awesome. Well, there we go, man. Once again, thank you so much for taking the time to do this, man. It was a really fun conversation, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I'm glad that we got connected, like I said, and I enjoyed doing this, man. So until next time, let's not have this be the last time.
Of course, man. We'd love to have you again in the future. And also, where can the fans see you, man? Where can they see in social medias, everything coming up? Let the fans know.
Yes, you got it. So we talked about pretty much everything from start to finish, but Clear Like Water 1 is my handle across everything: Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Golden Boy was already taken. Don't ask me why. So Clear Like Water 1, and then you can catch my Midas Touch t-shirt if you have it on the New Japan shop. You can find me there under New Japan Strong is the brand. So grab yourself a Midas Touch t-shirt. And then as I was mentioning, I will be on Hollywood television throughout the next couple of weeks, but you can catch me live on pay-per-view on Sunday in June. I want to say it's June 5th, Sunday, June 5th. You can catch me live on pay-per-view for When Our Shadows Fall, NWA.
Awesome. I know Rich and I'm gonna be watching that for sure, man. So
let's go. All right, message me. I better see some tweets or something. I gotta see some tweets or something. Let me know that my boys are watching.
Absolutely. And again, man, it was an honor to have you on, and thank you so much for being with us, man. Awesome episode, man.
Yeah, no, dude, I appreciate it. Until next time, like I said, you guys take care, and we'll do this again.
Awesome. And there you go. And that will do it for us here at Championship Online Podcast. We'll see you guys next time with Championship Online.